The moment lasted only a few minutes, but it touched millions of people. When Christina Applegate and Ed O'Neill stood together again after so many years, fans expected smiles, jokes, and happy memories. They got all of that, but they also saw something much deeper. Behind Christina's smile was a story she had never fully shared before. After years of staying quiet, she finally spoke about the man who had been far more than just her TV father. And what she revealed changed the way many people looked at their relationship forever. Before we go any further, here's something to think about. Have you ever had someone who wasn't part of your family but still felt like family? Let me know in the comments, because Christina's story may remind you of someone special in your own life. For many people, Married with Children was simply a funny sitcom. It made audiences laugh with its wild jokes and unforgettable characters. Christina played Kelly Bundy, the cheerful daughter with a carefree attitude. Ed O'Neill played Al Bundy, the tired shoe salesman whose sarcastic humor made him one of television's most famous fathers. On screen, they argued almost every episode. Al rolled his eyes at Kelly's silly decisions, while Kelly answered with her own funny comments. It looked like the perfect comedy family. But once the cameras stopped rolling, another story was quietly unfolding. Christina was still very young when she joined the show. Hollywood could be exciting, but it could also be confusing and lonely for a teenager growing up in front of millions of viewers. During those early years, she found someone who offered something she truly needed. Not fame, not career advice, but steady support. Years later, in interviews and public conversations, Christina described Ed as someone who made her feel safe. Ed, known for his calm and private personality, rarely spoke in dramatic ways. Instead, he showed his care through small actions, quiet conversations, and constant encouragement, something both actors have reflected on in interviews over the years. But the reunion would reveal something even more emotional, because the bond they built decades earlier was about to be tested by challenges no television script could have imagined. When Christina Applegate walked onto the set of Married with Children in 1987, she was only 15 years old. She had already worked as a child actress, but nothing could have prepared her for what was about to happen. The new sitcom was unlike anything else on television. It broke the rules. The jokes were bold, the characters were imperfect, and many critics believed the show would never last. They were wrong. But before the series became a huge hit, the cast had to become a family. And for Christina, one person made that transition much easier. Ed O'Neill was nearly twice her age and had lived a very different life. Before acting, he had worked many jobs and even dreamed of playing professional football. Those experiences gave him a calm way of looking at life. While many people in Hollywood chased attention, Ed stayed grounded. Cast members often described him as thoughtful, funny, and surprisingly quiet when the cameras were off. In interviews over the years, both Christina and Ed have spoken about the comfortable trust that grew between them during those early seasons. That trust became something Christina didn't even realize she needed. Growing up in Hollywood is rarely easy. Young actors face long workdays, constant attention, and pressure to perform perfectly. Every mistake can become a headline. Every success brings even more expectations. Christina was living that reality while still trying to enjoy being a teenager. But behind the scenes, Ed treated her less like another actor and more like someone he wanted to protect. He wasn't trying to control her life. Instead, he listened. He offered advice when she asked for it. Most importantly, he gave her a sense of stability in an industry where stability is often hard to find. That may not sound dramatic, but sometimes the people who change our lives do it quietly. And years later, Christina would remember those quiet moments more than any award or television rating. As Married with Children grew in popularity, millions of viewers watched the Bundy family every week. The chemistry between Christina and Ed looked so natural that many fans believed they acted like a real father and daughter off-screen. In many ways, they weren't completely wrong. Christina has shared in interviews that Ed became someone she could always count on. Even after filming ended each day, he remained a steady presence. He never tried to be the center of attention. Instead, he led by example. His professionalism, patience, and kindness left a lasting impression on the young actress standing beside him. But there was something else that made their relationship special. Unlike many Hollywood friendships that disappear after a show ends, theirs survived long after the final episode aired in 1997. While many cast members moved on to new projects, Christina and Ed stayed connected through the years. They celebrated each other's successes and quietly supported one another through difficult times. That kind of loyalty is rare in the entertainment world. According to interviews with both actors, Christina has often referred to Ed as someone who felt like a true father figure in her life. Ed, in return, has spoken warmly about watching Christina grow from a teenager into an accomplished actress. Their respect was never about publicity. It came from decades of shared experiences that no one else could fully understand. Fans loved seeing them together again because it reminded everyone of something that feels increasingly uncommon in Hollywood. Friendships that don't end when the cameras stop rolling. But just when life seemed to be moving forward for both of them, everything changed. A series of painful personal battles would test Christina in ways she never expected. During those darkest moments, the lessons she had learned from Ed, and the bond they had built decades earlier, would take on a whole new meaning. And what happened next would make their reunion far more emotional than anyone could have imagined. By the time Married, with Children ended after 11 seasons, Christina Applegate and Ed O'Neill had spent more than a decade working side by side. For many actors, the final day on set is also the end of their friendships. Everyone goes in different directions. Phone calls become less frequent. Life moves on. But that wasn't their story. Even though they no longer saw each other every day, the connection they had built never disappeared. Years later, whenever they reunited at interviews, award shows, or television specials, it felt as if no time had passed. Their conversations were natural. Their laughter came easily. Fans noticed that they still looked at each other with the same warmth they had shared years earlier. That wasn't acting. It was real. Christina's career continued to grow. She earned praise for shows like Jessie, Samantha Who, and later Dead to Me. She proved she could play many different roles, far beyond the cheerful Kelly Bundy that had made her famous. Critics admired her talent, and audiences loved seeing her take on more emotional characters. Ed also found a new chapter in his career. When he joined Modern Family as Jay Pritchett, a whole new generation discovered him. Once again, he played a father. Once again, his mix of humor and heart made viewers fall in love with the character. It almost seemed as if life had come full circle. But behind Christina's success, a much harder story was beginning. In 2008, she revealed that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. She was only in her 30s. The news shocked fans around the world. After learning she carried a BRCA1 gene mutation, she chose to undergo a double mastectomy to reduce the risk of the disease returning. Christina later spoke openly about her decision in interviews, hoping her experience would encourage other women to pay attention to their health and get screened when needed. It was one of the toughest moments of her life, yet she faced it with remarkable courage. There was no dramatic headline about Ed rushing into the spotlight. That wasn't his style. Friends and colleagues have long described him as someone who shows support quietly rather than publicly. Christina has often spoken about the people who stood by her during difficult times, and those close relationships meant more than public displays of sympathy. Sometimes the strongest support happens where cameras cannot see. As the years passed, Christina kept working, raising her daughter, and building her life. To fans, she seemed unstoppable. But another challenge was waiting just around the corner. In 2021, she shared that she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, often called MS. The disease affects the brain and nerves, making everyday activities much harder. Walking became difficult. Filming long days became exhausting. Simple tasks that many people never think about suddenly required incredible strength. The announcement broke hearts across the world. Yet Christina refused to hide. She spoke honestly about the pain, the fear, and the frustration. Instead of pretending everything was fine, she chose to tell the truth. That honesty inspired countless people facing illnesses of their own. They saw someone who was still smiling, still working, and still refusing to give up even when life had changed completely. But in the middle of those difficult years came a moment no one expected. When Christina and Ed finally reunited in public again, fans noticed something different. Their hug lasted a little longer. Their smiles carried deeper emotion. The jokes were still there, but so was the feeling that they both understood just how precious time had become. Before we reveal what Christina finally admitted about Ed during that emotional reunion, and why her words left so many fans in tears, make sure you subscribe. The next part uncovers a side of their relationship that most people never knew, and it may completely change the way you remember one of television's most beloved families. When Christina Applegate and Ed O'Neill reunited years after married, with children, fans expected a fun trip down memory lane. They remembered the jokes, the Wild Bundy family, and the unforgettable moments that made the show a television classic. What they did not expect was the emotion. As they talked, laughed, and remembered the past, something became clear. This was not just two former co-stars catching up. It was two people who had shared an important part of each other's lives. Then Christina said something that caught everyone's attention. She explained that Ed had always been much more than the actor who played her father. Over the years, in interviews and public conversations, she has described him as a genuine father figure. She spoke about the comfort he gave her as a young actress trying to find her place in Hollywood. While many people came and went throughout her career, Ed remained someone she deeply trusted. Those words carried extra weight because Christina rarely speaks lightly about the people closest to her. She has always been honest about how difficult parts of her life have been. So when she openly shared her love and respect for Ed, fans knew those feelings had been built over decades, not during a single reunion. But perhaps the most touching part was Ed's response. He has never been someone who enjoys dramatic speeches or seeks the spotlight. Instead, he has always let his actions speak for him. During interviews over the years, Ed has spoken warmly about watching Christina grow from a teenager into an award-winning actress, saying how proud he was of everything she had accomplished. Coming from someone known for being quiet and sincere, those words meant everything. Their relationship reminded people that family is not always connected by blood. Sometimes family is built through trust. Sometimes it grows from years of showing up when someone needs you. And sometimes the strongest bonds are formed without anyone outside ever noticing. That is exactly what happened here. As fans looked back at old episodes of Married with Children, many began seeing them differently. The funny arguments between Al and Kelly Bundy suddenly felt more meaningful. Behind every joke was a level of comfort that could not be faked. Their chemistry came from real affection, and audiences had been watching it for years without fully realizing why it felt so natural. Then another emotional moment brought everything into focus. When Christina received her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2022, she appeared in public for one of the first times after revealing her multiple sclerosis diagnosis. Walking was difficult, and she spoke openly about the daily challenges she now faced. Ed O'Neill stood beside her during that special ceremony. He did not try to make the moment about himself. Instead, he celebrated Christina with the same quiet pride that had defined their friendship from the very beginning. His presence alone sent a powerful message. He was still there, just as he had been decades earlier. Many people watching right now may be facing a challenge that feels impossible. Maybe your life has changed in ways you never expected. Maybe someone has quietly stood beside you through your hardest days. Christina and Ed's story reminds us that those people are often the greatest gift we will ever receive. Success fades. Awards collect dust. But loyal people stay in our hearts forever. And yet, as moving as their reunion was, Christina's journey was far from over. She continued speaking honestly about living with multiple sclerosis, finding new ways to work, laugh, and inspire others despite the pain. The strength she showed surprised millions. But the biggest lesson from her story was not about fame. It was about gratitude. Because sometimes the greatest truth a person can reveal is simply this: never take the people who stand beside you for granted. The final chapter of the story reveals why Christina and Ed's friendship has become one of Hollywood's most inspiring relationships, and the powerful lesson it leaves for all of us. Hollywood is full of stories that begin with great friendships but end with disappointment. Cast members stop talking. Public arguments make headlines. Fans are left wondering what really happened. That is one reason Christina Applegate and Ed O'Neill's story feels so different. After nearly 4 decades, there has never been a public feud between them. No shocking interviews, no ugly headlines. Instead, there has been something much rarer, mutual respect that has only grown stronger with time. That kind of relationship cannot be created for the cameras. It has to be earned. Looking back today, it is clear that Married with Children gave audiences much more than laughs. It brought together people who truly cared about one another. While every cast member had their own journey, Christina and Ed's father-daughter bond became one of the show's most meaningful stories away from the television screen. As Christina has continued speaking publicly about living with multiple sclerosis, she has also shown incredible honesty about accepting help. She has admitted that life is different now. Some days are painful. Some days are frustrating. But she refuses to let the disease define who she is. That attitude has inspired millions. Instead of hiding from the public, she has used her voice to encourage others facing illness, loss, or uncertainty. Her interviews are no longer just about acting. They are about resilience, hope, and learning to keep moving forward even when life changes forever. In many ways, those lessons reflect the kind of steady strength she admired in Ed all those years ago. He never needed to be the loudest person in the room. He never chased attention. He simply showed up. Sometimes that is the greatest gift anyone can give. When fans revisit old clips of Christina and Ed together, they notice little moments they may have missed before. A genuine smile, an effortless laugh, a look of pride. Those moments remind us that some of the strongest relationships are built quietly, one day at a time. The truth Christina finally revealed was not a hidden scandal or a shocking Hollywood secret. It was something much more powerful. She revealed that the man millions knew as Al Bundy had become a real father figure in her life. Through interviews, public appearances, and heartfelt conversations over the years, she made it clear that Ed's kindness, guidance, and unwavering support helped shape the person she became. Sometimes the biggest stories are not about betrayal. They are about loyalty, not about fame, but about love, trust, and gratitude. Those qualities are harder to find than any award in Hollywood. If there is one lesson we can all take from Christina and Ed's journey, it is this: never wait too long to tell people what they mean to you. Life changes quickly. Health can change. Careers can change. The people we love will not always be with us forever. The ones who stand beside us during our hardest days deserve to know how much they matter. And perhaps that is why Christina's words touched so many people around the world. They reminded us that family is not always the one we are born into. Sometimes it is the family we find along the way. But this story also opens the door to another fascinating question. How did a sitcom that many critics believed would fail become one of the most influential comedy shows in television history? And what really happened behind the scenes during those unforgettable 11 seasons? That's a story filled with surprises that deserves its own documentary. Until then, Christina Applegate and Ed O'Neill leave us with a timeless reminder. Success may make people remember your name, but kindness is what makes people remember your heart.